I want to talk about Megaman 2. Why 2? Well, it was my first game in the series. I remember having to beg my dad to let me play video games. There was a unspoken rule where we were only allowed to play for 30 minutes, so I had to make the best of that time. I was doing speedrunning before it was even a thing. I became so familiar with this game, I was able to beat the game with mostly the Mega Buster. But as good as I was at the time, beating it in 30 minutes was impossible. Luckily, this game had a password system where I can pick up where I left off. And as you can see, I still remember the password. Despite having one of the most memorable tracks in the series, the Wily Stage 1 was one of the worst Mega Man stage I have ever played. Not because it was difficult, but it was poorly designed. Now let me explain why. First, right at the beginning of the stage, it forces you to use the extra weapon to get through obstacles. Then one of the hardest parts of this entire game shows up. Now you can see here, we need to use the extra weapon number 1 to get up to the ladder. You can only throw out 3 of the platforms, so you have to wait until the first one to despawn before you can throw the 4th one to reach to the ladder on the other side. If you mess it up and run out of energy, you then have to go back down and grind the enemies to refill it. And when you finally get past the part, watch out for these floaties that could knock you right back down. If you do get hit and fall, well, it's back to square one. After getting past all of that, here's where your platforming skills is put to the test. As you hop over these squares, the stage begins to push you to the right. And you better be ahead of it because here comes the cheapest boss in the game, the dragon. First, it will give you a short chase until you hit the 3 platforms at the end. And this is where you face the dragon. What makes this boss difficult is it shoots fireballs at you randomly. And if you take a hit at a bad spot, it will send you right down to the abyss. Sometimes when you spam your attack button, which you most likely will be doing, it will spam a bunch of fireballs at you. That drops the game's frame rate and messes up your timing to jump away. If you are unfortunate enough to fall to the dragon, it is back to square one for you. The stage is not actually that difficult once you are familiar with it. But the 6-year-old me back then absolutely hated it. I remember the rest of the Wily stages were pretty easy. Well, except for this boss. In here, only the Crushman's weapon works on the boss. There are 5 of them, and you only get 7 shots at full energy. There is a way to clear the boss in 1 shot. First, you will have to use your extra weapon number 1 to get up to the top left. Then you take out the others, leaving the one on the right last. You may have to use your life tank, but it is better than getting sent back to the beginning of the stage. The final boss is probably the easiest of all. Once you get the pattern down, you can easily beat it without even getting hit. Looking back at this game, I don't think it is even my favorite Mega Man game in the series, but it did lead me to beg my parents to buy the rest of the series and becoming a fan. And this marks another chapter of my childhood life.